In today's edition, we're going to be looking at how to lengthen and load all of the muscles that flex the hip. So when it comes to hip flexion, we've got a whole bunch of muscles that do that job. And hip flexion being when the leg comes up toward the torso, or when the torso comes down toward the leg, or when they both come toward each other. Muscles in the front compartment or surrounding the pelvis and the hip are most likely shortening to bring both ends together. So today we're going to work on lengthening and loading, but it's probably a good idea to know what it is we're lengthening and loading. So we've got about 8 different muscles that are responsible for flexing the hip. The main one we know about is the psoas major, attaching your thigh bone, the femur, to the vertebrae and actually some of the discs in your spine, going all the way up to the thoracic and all the way down through the lumbars. Now we also have the iliacus muscle attaching the back of the pelvis down into the femur, as well as the rectus femoris, one of those quadricep muscles that attach across at the ASIS of the pelvis, the anterior suprailiac spine, come down and attach to the shin bone. We call it the tibial tuberosity right there, and encompasses the kneecap as well. All those muscles will help to flex the hip. But we also have others that aren't as well known, like the sartorius, the tensor fasciolata, then the pectineus, the inner thigh muscles known as the adductor, longus and brevis, and then there's the gracilis muscle. That's a lot of muscles to be flexing the hip. So rather than trying to isolate one at a time or just do the psoas itself or the quad itself, we're going to try and load and lengthen the entire aspect of flexion of the hip. And what we have to do is just the opposite. We're going to work on hip extension. At least in one dimension of movement, we have extension. Now what we also want to see is subtle external rotation of this leg to create even greater length. And then what we're going to try and do is let the pelvis travel away from that back leg, so we get lengthening across. So we're dealing with the sagittal plane, the frontal plane, and transverse. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to have one leg forward, one leg back, in kind of your natural stride length, such as when you're walking, about that length. You're going to have the back leg be where you place most of your attention. And where we're going to look at first is the foot. We want to make sure that the pad of your pinky toe, the 5th metatarsal, stays in contact with the ground. And what might help is if you have a little foam wedge. We can place it on the ground and you put a little bit of pressure and contact on that 5th metatarsal head with the wedge. Now the reason why is because as I press into the floor, I want to maintain contact on that 5th metatarsal head. By doing so, that's going to extend my knee, and you'll feel how your thigh or your femur begins to externally rotate. So already we're starting to open up. Now I'm just going to load forward and backwards. As I go forward, I'm going to feel load on that tissue there. Now to enhance this, as I extend, I might take one arm and reach up. So the arm on the same side as my back leg, I'm going to reach upward. What that will do, it will draw me over to the forward leg. And then, taking the other arm, I could reach on back. So what we're doing is creating a little bit of rotation in the body, opening up this further. And what I want to see is the knee stays extended the entire time. Now, if I allow my pinky toe, that 5th metatarsal head, to roll off the floor, roll off the wedge, what's going to happen is my knee is going to begin to flex. It won't stay extended. And therefore, the muscles in the hip flexors aren't going to get the appropriate length we're looking for. And that's the trouble with most of us. We aren't able to fully, truly extend and open up this region. Perhaps it's because we spend so much time driving, sitting, or just standing in place and getting into this kind of locked down, matted position for those muscle tissues. So, once again, just allowing yourself to press through the floor, getting the 2 parts of contact, the 1st and 5th metatarsal head on the ground, and lengthening and loading away from there. Arm raised up, other arm rotating back. try this for a little bit, maybe about 30 seconds to a minute or so. Really start to experience how that length and loading is occurring. And then take a walk around. See if you notice anything. Compare this hip that we haven't treated yet with the other hip. Is there a difference? You'll most likely are going to feel a little bit more spring, maybe a lightness, maybe a little bit more propulsion off of that leg that we just worked on. Then, of course, you want to do the same thing to the other side. Just compare the difference between one side and the other. You might find that spending a little bit more time on the more affected side, the more compact side, will do you a world of good. But it's not a guarantee. Your body is different than anybody else's, so you're going to have to just explore that. But give it a shot, walk around, see how that feels to the rest of the body. Did it release low back tension or neck tension? Are your knees feeling better? Do your ankles feel like they're more open? It could be someplace that you didn't even expect, but simply by opening up the tissue here and getting it to experience length and load and proper function, it may have a great reaction all the way through the body. Let me know.